Well, hi, Mom. We're here today to sit and talk about your life. Helen Widenhofer, of origins of South Dakota, but living in Billings, Montana now.
And Catherine is going to do some questions that she has no idea what the answers will be.
Some of them yes, some of them no.
Right.
Because you always sit there and tell people stories when we have family together. And I always ask you, well, I didn't know that.
And my comment is, well, you never asked.
Yeah, but how, if I don't know what it is, how can I ask?
Well, today you will find out
Okay, I
some
guess
of those
so.
mysteries of my life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we have a bunch of photographs on this, whatever this machinery is, this technology. So, if it's okay, I'm going to start clicking through them, and you can talk to them.
All right.
All right. So, there's the first one is a house that you lived in somewhere. What is that one?
This house is where most of my memories started, because when we moved from Watertown, South Dakota, where I was born, to Selby, South Dakota, where my father had a job. This was a rental house, and it was a very lovely house. It had the advantage of an inside toilet,
Oh, no great outhouse.
which I realized later was a real luxury.
Because your other house in the farm have an outhouse with Sears and Roebuck pages for toilet paper?
Absolutely.
The catalog toilet paper, yay.
But this house holds a lot of memories because we spent a lot of time there, quality time, winters and summers. Mm-hmm. It had a coal chute and a big coal furnace. And when we would burn the coal, which came in big blocks, there would be what we called cinders left over. The big pieces of coal would be burned out and leave kind of a skeleton like a coral formation.
Did you call them kinkle or winkles or something?
Pardon?
Didn't you once call those kinkles or winkles or crinkles?
Clinkers.
Clinkers, that's right, okay.
Then you would remove the clinkers when they were cool, and if you would pour ammonia on them, they began to grow these marvelous little fern-like structures on the coal clinker.
Okay. Kind of like if you put baking soda and vinegar in like the lava for elementary science school projects, but no.
Basically, but we did not do that at school. We did it at home. But if you touched it, it all collapsed.
Okay. So how many years did you live in that house, do you know?
Well, I was 4 when we moved there, and I was about 7 when we bought the other house.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I have a couple more house pictures, and I don't know which one is which, so I'm going to just move forward. Is that okay? Unless you have more stories.
Right.
Did you have insulation in that house?
This house?
Yeah.
I'm not aware that it did.
Okay.
We always had Jack Frost on the windows when winter came.
Mother,
Oh, your son has a question for you.
Yes?
I'm looking at some pictures of Selby, South Dakota. Did you ever go to the Opera House in Selby?
Oh, yes, the Opera House was the movie theater. And if they had ever had operas, it was before we moved there. But they called it the Opera House. And they would set up a screen in the front and folding chairs on the floors. And the folding chairs were full of gum underneath.
Oh, God. Everybody's gum. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so now we're going to another house. I'm not sure which one that is.
That is the second house. That is the house we bought for $1,000 because my mother's aunt had left her $1,000 for the inheritance.
Oh, and that's the
So-
one that had the outdoor toilet?
What?
This had an outdoor toilet?
This one had no plumbing
Oh, that's right. Okay.
and no insulation. So after we moved in, one of the first things we did was insulate the house and then get some running water for a bathroom and a water heater. So my father was a county agent and he had hired Mexicans to come help with the harvest. And so he used those Mexicans to dig the sewer ditch from the house out to the street. And then they laid the pipe and then Dad finished the plumbing inside. So we would have an inside bathroom. There were 6 of us using that same bathroom all through the years. And it was such a luxury when we finally had the inside bathroom. Otherwise, it was a little path out to the outhouse in the back of the house in the alley.
In the alleyway? Oh, God.
Yeah.
Huh. But how did you said something about Grandpa getting vermiculite for the insulation in that ceiling, in the attic?
He
Yeah.
and Mother insulated that with bags and bags of vermiculite. There was one opening in the ceiling that you could access, and they spent a lot of long days getting that insulation up there. But it certainly made a difference, especially in the winter.
Yeah. Definitely.
This house also had a big coal burning furnace.
Okay. Right, next one is another house. I don't know which one this is either. Might be,
This is the house that, when we moved to Gettysburg, this is the house we lived in. And we had bought the house. And of course, by then, everything had indoor plumbing in it.
yeah, you can see the power lines in the back too.
Right.
Oh, and you have one of those metal TV antennas on the top.
Oh, yeah, we could. That was when we got our
Or-
first TV. It was the little square box
Yeah,
with a very small screen, but
like in the early 1950s.
yes.
Yeah, probably.
Well, no. We did not, Dad did not get the TV until we were almost out of school. It was later.
So that might have been a radio antenna as well. I don't know.
No, by then it was probably the TV antenna
Oh,
when the house was filmed there.
oh. Looks like asbestos siding too. I don't know. Hard to tell. Okay, so that was your last 2 years of high school?
Yeah.
In
That's where
Gettysburg?
we lived for the last 2 years of my high school.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. And I don't know what that one is.
That's another one of the Selby house that
Oh.
we bought.
The other act, okay. Another ad. Okay, so now we're going to jump back in time because this one is an old one.
Okay, this house now goes back to my grandmother's side on Dad. It was my father's mother's generation.
So the James
They-
Polk Cooley was raised in this house, wherever that is. Where is that? Is that in
That house is in
Maryland?
Springfield,
Oh, in Springfield.
South Dakota. And John Polk Cooley immigrated to South Dakota. It was very rich farmland then, and he made an excellent living being a farmer. And he and Margaret raised 12 children there.
Is
And-
Margaret one of Jesse's sisters?
No, Margaret was Jesse's mother.
Mother. Oh, this is Jesse's parents. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And he was in the first state legislature.
Oh, he's the one in that photograph
Right.
that we have a framed picture of. Okay.
Right.
All right.
That
So that
was,
is that. Remember we talked about, was it Carvel Cooley or somebody that was alive when I was young still, that lived down there, and he was buried down there, or there's a
well,
big.
Carvel Cooley was one of her brothers that was just a figure in my imagination. I
Okay.
don't remember seeing him. There was a Corbin Cooley, who you may have
Remember.
been acquainted with.
Okay, I just remember that there's a lot of talk. I was so young. I remember there's like some big family plot of burials and some graves and a graveyard down there. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So if we went on a little hunt down to Springfield area, we'd find a cemetery with a bunch of coolies.
Yes.
Okay.
And the youngest brother apparently committed murder in Sioux City,
Oh yeah.
and he was buried in that cemetery, and that's what we were looking at. He was never accused, but he was a very likely suspect in this murder in Sioux City, Iowa,
Okay.
which was very close to Springfield, South Dakota. It was just a hop, skip, and a jump across the Missouri River.
Okay. So did that younger brother get killed and was buried, or was he just old age died and buried?
That's a mystery that I can't unravel.
Nobody really
Sorry.
knows.
Was not talked about,
I bet not.
no.
All right.
But that's the house that table was in, where
Oh,
they
this
seated.
our dining room table
Uh-huh,
on the sideboard.
yeah.
Oh wow.
It had room for 12 people around the table.
Ah.
Actually, because 2 of the children had died early, so there were usually just 12 around the table. That's a huge,
Yeah. Well,
amount
that's
of-
why that table has all those extra leaves.
yes.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Now we're going to jump to a picture of Jessie, a little bit older.
That's just Grandma Jessie, my father's mother, and Edwin, his father. They are visiting us in Selby, South Dakota, in the first rental house.
Okay, and the one with the plumbing.
Yes, the one with the plumbing.
Okay.
It was a very hard life for them at that point,
Yeah.
but Edwin continued to pretend he was
A farmer.
a rich, dominating person.
Okay, so that were they living in Milesville by that point, or down by
Yeah,
the
they
river?
were at Milesville at that point,
Okay.
and obviously still had some resources. The way they're both dressed, she had a nice dress and white collar and cuffs,
Yeah.
and his shirt was clean and pressed. So,
Well, tell the story of how that marriage happened. Because
well, Jessie was the oldest of those 12 children, of the Cooley children. And by the time she was 25, she was not married, which was putting her in the category of old maids at that point. So her father had relatives back in Maryland. That's where he had come from. And so they sent Jessie back to Maryland to see if she could find a husband, basically. And Edwin Hopkins lived in the same county, which was Baltimore and encompassed in that county. And how they met, I don't know, but they seemed to click, and she married him back there, and they lived back there until my father was born.
Yeah, I was going to say, Grandpa was born in Darlington County, Maryland.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they came to Springfield, South Dakota, where Jesse's father and mother had established this farm. And Jesse's father built a house for them, which is someplace in those slides, and got him established in a butcher shop.
Oh.
So he was the town butcher.
But he
for,
probably didn't know anything about how to do it.
I don't know what his background in that area was, but he soon failed at that. And by then, they had
Robert.
3 more children. They had, my father was the first one, born in Maryland. Then Robert was born in South Dakota, the second boy. Then the twins were born, Harriet and Howard, fraternal twins. Their younger brother was not yet on the scene.
Right.
But at that point, in a 1917 era, the Homestead Act had opened again.
Oh, okay.
If it had ever been closed, that I don't know. But Edwin decided he would homestead in the West River area, which was meant across the Missouri River. So he claimed some land on the Cheyenne River, and they moved out there, and they had to build every building on that ranch.
And there is a picture of it coming.
Right.
I think it's this one. Let me check.
Yes, this is the
Okay,
ranch
that's
on
the
the
Cheyenne River Ranch. Okay.
Right. And they had to build all of it. Unfortunately, it was on the floodplain, which was not an issue in those days. But one year the river flooded and took the whole ranch with it.
Yeah.
So
I suppose they didn't really think about floodplain building
that was not part of it.
engineering at that point.
No.
But anybody with half a brain would know you don't build right next to the river.
Well, I don't know.
I
have to back up a minute.
Okay.
When Jesse and Edwin were married in Maryland, they used sterling silver and Haviland china,
Wow.
and they brought all of that with them, of course,
Oh, to the river ranch?
to the river ranch. That's what they used. And most of that was swept away. But
Oh.
Jesse managed to save a few pieces. And I have the teapot from that Haviland set.
You do?
It has a chip on the spout, but otherwise it's intact.
Which one is that? What color is it?
It's packed away. I don't know that you've ever seen it.
Well, I guess we're going to have to unpack that someday, Mom.
If we can find the box in our jungle of boxes.
Oh, God. Yeah, well, it might be in the closet with all the other dishes.
Might be.
Might be. Okay. I think this is another picture of that river ranch. Yeah. Maybe
There's another picture. You can easily see the river
yeah.
behind it, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's an easy flood.
And across the river was the Cheyenne Indian Reservation.
Oh.
And in the winter, the Indians would walk across to the ranch, and Jessie was very kind and gracious, and she would help the Indians. So she got to know some of the Indians in
Sure.
the winter.
Yeah. Wonder what Edwin did. Did he just ignore him?
I have
Who
no
knows?
idea.
Who knows, right? All right. I don't know. I think this might be the Milesville Ranch. So we're jumping weird places.
Yes, now that is where they moved after the Cheyenne River flooded them out. So when we got to the section line on the road into Milesville, then we turned and went up another section line for about 2 miles, and then came into the ranch property up there, which was on a hill. No flooding anymore.
Yeah.
But there was a barn. The house was in good shape at that point.
Yeah.
There was a fence. They had planted trees. And over here is a cornfield with a fence. And when they did laundry, they just hung the laundry on the barbed wire fence.
Huh. Oh.
And down at the bottom of the hill was a well and the windmill, but the water was all artesian, and it was fine for the cattle, but it was not usable for drinking. So all of the drinking water had to be hauled in cream cans from someplace in Milesville,
Oh my
where
God.
the water was not artesian. So when we would go out to Milesville to help with the harvest every summer, we had to, Dad always had to go with Edwin to get water because 8, 10 people required a lot more water than just 3 of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Here's like some more the cows in the corral.
yep.
Did they raise a lot of cattle out there, or is it just like dryland wheat? Or?
No, he had quite a few cattle, and he would, when they needed money, he would load up his truck with cattle and go to Sioux City to sell them at auction.
Sioux City or Rapid City?
No, Sioux City,
Wow.
Iowa was the meat packing place.
That's all the way
The
across the
auction.
state.
The auction place. And so he would spend a great deal of that money entertaining himself with the ladies of the night and drinking. And when he came home, he had very little money left.
So then the downward spiral. Yikes. There's another picture on the farm. Who's that? Do you know? Can you tell who's in that picture?
That's a team of horses that they used for everything, and obviously hauling some firewood.
Yeah. But who's the person? Is that Howard or something like
I'm
that?
not sure. I never was real sure who that was.
It's kind of hard to tell. Yeah. More cattle. Ooh, branding cattle. Ooh-wee.
There they are, branding cattle.
Do you
Yep.
remember what the brand was? What it looked like? No?
No, I don't. I wish I did, but you can notice the corral fence is all trees.
Mm-hmm.
It's not planed
No, it's
board, it's all trees.
tree,
Yeah.
parts of tree limbs and yeah.
And
Wonder
I
where
did-
they got the tree stuff because there wasn't much of many
Well,
trees
they
out
went
there.
to the Cheyenne River and cut down trees there
Oh,
because there were a lot of trees along that river.
yeah.
Small ones, they hadn't,
Yeah, but
just that size.
because there's no water out there in Milesville,
No,
I just remember how awful it was.
but I can remember my father talking about branding and what a big job it was.
Yeah,
And you can see they've got the legs tied.
Did you ever go
somebody
out for
holding-
branding or not?
No,
No, yeah,
that was earlier in the spring.
yeah, when you were still in school. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whew. There you girls are.
Now,
on the
this takes
fence.
us into the mother side of the family. This is her mother and father were renting this farm in Iowa.
So this isn't the Milesville house farm.
This is not Milesville.
Oh.
This is Forest City, Iowa.
Okay.
And we would go down there because Grandpa Louie was sick. And for about 3 years, we went down there every summer. And as he progressed, his health failed. It was the trips we would make. That's why we would go down.
Yeah.
Well, to see them also.
Yeah.
But you can see this pig back here.
Yeah.
And Grandpa Louie would say, "Now, girls, don't fall over that fence because the pigs will attack you."
Oh.
Whether they would or not, I don't know.
know.
But we're always very cautious.
You just
going
stand
along
on
that
that front fence line and look at it.
Yeah, but we'd spend a lot of miles on that fence going back and forth.
Did you antagonize the pig?
I don't think we did. I think we were told not to. But we probably went out and said oink oink to them, things like that.
I suspect so.
Yeah. But the reason they had rented the farm was it was after all the banks failed. And Louie and Belle had run the bank in Crocker, South Dakota.
Okay.
And where Louie also was a partner with a very close friend in a lumber business. So
okay.
Louie built a house for his bride, and then she declined to marry him. So then
Oh,
he
before
courted-
Belle?
Before Belle.
Oh.
So then he courted Belle, and they were married and moved into this house that he had built for somebody else.
Did
But-
she know that at first?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
The town was that small.
Yeah, I suppose.
But they did very well for a while until the banks crashed and their bank closed. And then they had no resources left. So Grandma Belle's, Uncle or Grandpa Louie had relatives in Forest City. He had a sister. He had 2 sisters there, actually. And they were all Danish. Family had come from Denmark.
Right.
And so one of them had married, and her husband had this farm, and he rented the farm to Louie and Belle.
Okay.
And things just kind of went downhill after that.
Because
And
of his health started to decline and just,
Yeah.
was he a farmer or
Yeah, he was a farmer. And we were down there during threshing season, which was really a fun thing for us. We didn't do threshing in Selby. We shocked the grain and then it was threshed, but we never saw that part of it. But down here in Iowa, they did the threshing. And all the neighbors would get together and come to one farm and do the threshing for that farmer. And on threshing days, the hostess had to provide a huge midday meal. So it would be like roast beef or roast pork and mashed potatoes and sweet corn and apple pie and coffee or lemonade. It was a full, big meal, of course, and lots of handmade bread and butter. I always remember that.
Yum.
And so if we could help set the table, we did, which wasn't really much help.
Well, I get the plates and stuff on there.
So
it's
there
all
would
good.
be 8 to 10 people to have a big meal like that. every day for 3 or 4 days.
8 to 10 extra people?
Yeah,
Yeah,
to help with the threshing.
yeah.
And there was a pump outside on the back porch, and all the men would stand at the pump and wash themselves off. And we had one towel, and they'd all dry their hands on that towel. Well, that's what you did.
Well,
If you were
yeah.
the last one, it was a little bit wet.
Yeah.
But that's what they did. And then they trooped in through the kitchen into the dining room, sat at the table, and were served this big dinner.
The women folk served the men, did they?
Pardon?
The women folk served the men folk.
Yeah. Grandma Belle and my mother served them. Sometimes Mother's sister Eva would be there
Okay.
and help. And she was a nurse, so that third summer that we went down there, Louis was very ill, and we all had to be very quiet. So
Oh, God.
Corbin was quite young then. He was almost still a baby. And we would have to go upstairs in the attic where there was a jigsaw map of the United States. And we would sit and put that map together time after time after time. And it was so hot up there.
I was thinking in the middle of the summer in Iowa, it must
Yeah,
have
it
been
was
miserable.
very hot. But that's what we did, and we were very quiet. And one day, Dad said, "Girls, we're going to Ames," because that was the state agricultural school in Iowa, and him being a county agent, he wanted to see what they did in Iowa. So he packed up the 3 kids. Corbin only had to stay with Mother. And we went to Ames. And when we came back from Ames, Grandpa had died. So they had a hired man in a little house on the ground. So the hired man said what had happened. So then we had to get back in the car and go into Forest City to take care of things. Mother and Eva were already in Forest City.
How did they
But we
get
had
there
a-
if you had the car?
What?
How did they get there
Well,
if you guys had the car at Ames?
Louis must have had a car. He did.
So how did they get from South Dakota to?
Oh, we went on the train.
Oh,
Sometimes we would go on the train.
okay.
They still had service then.
Yeah, passenger service existed. Yeah.
But, so we had a flat tire on the way into town. Oh, goodness. Dad was so frustrated,
Oh,
but he got out and got it changed, and then we eventually got there. After that, I don't remember much, but I do remember the funeral. In the funeral parlor, and the 3 of us kids had to be upstairs in the funeral parlor, because we could not be downstairs in the funeral because we were too little, and we might disturb the service. So instead, we sat on the steps and played, and probably made enough noise anyway.
I know, right? You probably made more noise than you would have sitting in there.
Probably.
Oh,
But that's what I remember about the funeral.
yeah.
And because there were so many other people and so much else going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one thing we did when we were in Iowa to entertain ourselves, and here we are, this ages, about 6, 5, and almost 4. We would go across a cornfield to the neighbor's house they were the Torkelsons. They were very Norwegian. And the cornfield, we had to go not horizontally through the road, but vertically. Now, really not vertically,
kind
but
of at an angle.
at the other angle. And Mother, I said, now hang on to Barbara so you don't get lost, because if you didn't all follow each other closely between the stalks, and one time she did get lost.
I was going to say, did she
We
get
had
lost?
to stand there and holler till we found her. But we would go over to the Torkelsons, and they had a lot of kids, but they also had a swing in the front yard on one of the big trees.
Oh,
It was not the regular swing, it was a piece of rope with a burlap bag filled with straw hanging on it. So you had to, they'd swing the rope back to you when you were up on the tree. You had to climb the tree to get up there. And then they'd swing over to you, the bag, and you had to wrap your legs around the bag and swing down and see how long you could keep it going.
how many
And
prickles
sometimes there would be somebody down there twirling it and twisting it, so you got real dizzy.
Yeah. How many prickles from straw did you get, or burns
Who
from
knows?
the burlap?
Who knows? Yeah,
I know.
that was just part of the game.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we spent a lot of time playing with those kids
yeah.
because it kept us out of the
Kind of Louis' sick.
drama going
yeah.
on
Yeah.
with his illness. Yeah.
Okay.